Salutations! So glad to see y'all back here, everyone. Your old monster friend Sichuan's got a more novel Deltarune topic for y'all, as originated from my old poll. As you've masterfully scoped out from the title and the thumbnail, I'll be doing an analysis on these uppercase songs, or the Bibliox hymns as I'm calling them for now. The more deeply entrenched of y'all may already be familiar with these, at least in concept, but many newer or more casual Undertale and Deltarune fans may think that I finally popped my lid. But I promise, this is actually interesting and may be important for the future. Please trust my mental faculties for the next 13-ish minutes. I'm here to go through each of these songs, be it the ones we have, the ones that we don't have, and the ones that are implicitly included from outside of the available list, then synthesizing them all together into an, at least mostly, cohesive theory of what they are and why they exist, regardless of their relative obscurity and their mutual association. With that premise set, let us read a little deeper into what these old tomes have misspelled for us. To give a bit more context as to why we should even care about these tracks, first of all, these are not to be confused with the program songs. As far as we know, these are two essentially unrelated groups. Onto the hymns themselves, the existence of this song group has been observed to exist to some degree since Chapter 1, but has since become a massive, full-blown set of songs that made their association known with Bibliox's proofread act. While making a more proper debut in Chapter 4, a single Bibliox does appear in Chapter 3 as Toriel's Book of Hymns, and leads us to meeting with the Forgotten Man in said chapter. You'll see more about this detail as the video continues, but from that encounter alone, y'all must agree that these mumbly wizards aren't just senile old fools. As far as I know, these songs are less about the Darkners that hold their names, even though a lot of the church Darkners are very much involved in this sort of thing, and more on why they exist to be chronicled at all as hymns. But what is the why? Well, let's see if we can't figure that out. For the explicit and implicit songs, we'll go chronologically in order for when we're exposed to the existence of the tunes, and we'll get to the unavailable ones later with like 3 asterisks. Because of course, things can't just be straightforward with this game. First to our exposure is Gallery, and oh boy, here we go. Keeping things simple for now, this hymn accompanies King, Queen, and the Titan before or after their fights. Strangely, it's completely absent in Chapter 3, which does coincide with it being the only main Dark World where the final boss is, that wasn't made by the Knight. It's a rather imposing track that vaguely resembles Gaster's theme, but I'm not banking on that similarity here. What is definitely a point of interest is the name, which has been largely interpreted as meaning Rogue's Gallery, which does still make sense, but Chapter 4 has added a bizarre wrinkle to this, as we now have the Gallery Prophecy panel found in, appropriately, the Gallery of Ancient Faces. It invokes the traditional artistic meaning of the word, depicting picture frames at the sides and either a humanoid or a bust in the middle with its face crossed out. This is arguably the strangest example on this list, and we're not even close to roots yet, in part because of how obviously and sorely lacking our disposal of context is for this. There are way too many questions being raised by the prophecy panel, but for now, we have enough information, at least for this video's topic, so let's not burn our brains out just yet. Wasting no more time, our second stop is Flashback, graciously less convoluted even though it is still an asterisk. As the title suggests, it is similarly Gaster-adjacent sounding, and mainly concerns important or dire events from the past, largely involving the holidays, and even more so, it's first seen in Chapter 2's Weirdroot cutscene from the hospital. But this song is also used to explain how Dark Worlds work, which naturally includes everyone's favorite, this thing. You'll see more of friend later. Flashback even from here seems to be a strange track, not helped at all by being currently the only one of these hymns that plays in the Light World for some reason. This won't be the last you hear of this song either, as it can be easily induced to be used in the chapters again, just as it's done in 3 separate chapters so far, but even in terms of version, not only is the edition we have still just an excerpt of a fuller song in the future of the game, but Northern Light is also a direct rendition of this. Oh, a spoiler for later in the video. Shh. Blazing forward, we have Sword, and this is a really juicy one. It's got Tenna's motif as part of its main melody, which does kind of make sense for it being the transition into the illicitness of the Sword and later the Weirdroot, but also includes the base of the Holy, fittingly for who's controlling the damned thing. There's also the usual water elements that come with the Dark World, and all the very personal and disturbing issues and machinations of Chris and even Noelle, with Eram and friends stalking us all the while, which I've explained in depth in previous videos, which you can watch up in the right corner. Actually, Sword is a rather big part in figuring out the meaning of the Bibliox hymns, as similarly to Flashback before it, it implicates all of the official Swordroot tracks as being part of the same group, both in their usage and also being all caps. So let's pay them each a quick visit. Northern Light, self-explanatory for the most part, as stated prior, now with the greater Noel and Des emphasis, and continuing the melody's secondary relationship with them, and the larger Weirdroot. It also being the song that plays in Eram's room in the Ice Palace, albeit slowed down by a rather ghastly amount, makes its importance all the more apparent. Both of these ne'er-do-wells show up a lot with these hymns. This, however, shouldn't be very contentious. As we all know, ne'er-do-well is an anagram for Noel word. Naturally. Glacier, more Noel, Eram, and Weirdroot shenanigans, and approaching the concept of the shelter via the hometown trees. This song and its usage is pretty straightforward. Bitroots, kind of a complicated inclusion as the game kind of puts the cart before the Rousey on this one, arguably twice, as it is another asterisk. It's an even uneasier chiptune rendition of Digital Roots from Queen's Basement, which makes sense, and both of these are presumed renditions of just Roots, which we don't have yet. Regardless, more connections to Friend, secret bosses in general, hometown business, a depiction of the night is here it seems, and we even just straight up have the shelter by the end of it. Eram. Burning Eyes, the culmination of everything going right and so wrong with the Sword and Weirdroots, with the power of retro. Even throws in Titan imagery, shadow crystals, and the Knight's cool cape. All this and more brought to you by the Consequence Brothers. As for the song itself, it does appear to have what's best described as the Neo motif from Undertale's Jinna Root and later Big Shot. You can imagine possible implications for that if true, but that's as far as I can go with this video, so moving on. Now that we're done with the Sword Root tracks for now, we're back in the normal route with Atrium. Atrium plays in the entrance to the Dark Sanctuary in some of the darker segments, including one that's part of Gersen's secret boss quest. That and the prior one do have Titan Spawn in it, and the song might have the Holy Base again. This is honestly the hardest one to work with on the list. Not nothing, but I have to stretch this one via more extrapolation than the others. I just hope it gets used more in the future so we have more substantiation. But moving on to a much easier one. Guardian naturally comes next here. It's got its connection to the Knight, the Angel, and once again the Holy. The quote-unquote character theming of the Titans and their spawn are that of lingering fear and violent impulses coinciding with Chris and the Weirdroot and Eram. Again, two Titan spawn in particular, hinting at future Weirdroot and secret boss tomfoolery of the past and what's to come. And for the song itself, like many of the other Sanctuary songs, it's got the Don't Forget leitmotif, which is pretty cool. By extension, there's also Spawn, but it's more of the same. And we finish this part with the biggest asterisk of them all. Roots. As explained earlier, you have a rendition of it, but we've not been given the original. More importantly here is that this one, like Gallery, has a part of the prophecy dedicated to it, yet again dragging in Friend, Shadow Crystals, and the shelter incident from Chris and Des's past into it. Rather fittingly for the title, there's the phrase going back to one's roots on top of the tree imagery. But if we want to get even more esoteric with secondary interpretations of the name, and this is something that I'm only just now thinking of, what if Roots is a play on roots? As in the roots you play in Deltarune and Undertale to get different story beats and endings. Now wouldn't that be a twist? But probably the most harrowing part of this, in my opinion, is how it also directly links to the Forgotten Man, who, among many other things, is also predicated on Chris's past and trauma, and naturally includes the original game a second time in the context of this song. That Bibliox business is looking less and less out of place, isn't it? While we don't have the song itself beyond the melody of its renditions, I would argue that the chord that plays in this room could be used in the full song. Also, just being honest here, and this also extends to Flashback as well, I'm kind of scared for how and where this theoretical track just called Roots would play. With all the in-game songs accounted for, what can be extrapolated from them? Well, how about we take a look at the commonalities here as to see if any one or two things pop out at us. Yes. Yeah, I see. Okay. Do you have even the slightest idea how little that narrows it down? Yeah, looking at it like this, it's far too unfocused. And we can't say it's like for or against the prophecies or something particularly for the Weirdroot, since they literally do both. So that simpler method doesn't quite work on its own. Instead, how do these common points actually relate to each other and how the hymns are used? We have the Night and General Holiday examples, which also trace back to Chris's past and the shelter. Weirdroot stuff, which call to Chris's impulses, guilt, and mistakes from their past, including Friend and Eram haunting them and causing further trouble as manifestations of that, which explicitly culminates in the shelter. Flashback itself is all about reminiscing on a melancholic past and the dark, much like the holidays, as well as the alternate meaning of roots, both tracing back to the shelter incident. This looking to the past stuff is also present in Gallery, as its prophecy panel is in a place to marvel at what came before. The holy example implicates the angel, presumably the player, having reigned over Chris's soul and gastric contact after the shelter incident. Well, I believe now you have my theory. The Bibliox hymns are meant to be echoes from the past, particularly concerning the shelter, circumstances that led to the incident at the shelter, and the consequences of them thereon. This isn't a foolproof theory even without having the full selection of songs yet, as Atrium is still a rather weak link, and none of the currently expressed night-related themes have this naming scheme, but I'm still like 90% sure about this. It would certainly help if we had the full extent of the hymns at our disposal, and that's not even counting possible additional ones that we've not been tipped off to just yet, or even just a more proper name for this song group in general. But that's enough of the what could be's. With the framing of my theory, I would like to attempt to parse meaning in possible scenarios for which the future Bibliox hymns we're aware of may be employed, so let's give those a gander. The first of the unknown hymns is yet another asterisk. Amphitheater is one we actually might have already in some form. It's likely the song of the same name in Toby Fox's You May Nikki fansong album, Made Up You May Nickies, which just so happens to also be the origin of the Man song, where the two versions, most strikingly its 8-bit version, being directly ripped for Man NES. So yeah, very likely this is the one. But how and where would Amphitheater be used in Deltarune? Well, as the title says, this hymn will likely be played at a grand open theater, perhaps as an accompaniment to some sort of exposition or implication of Chris's past at or otherwise concerning the shelter. How this might be executed could be in two different ways in Chapter 5. One, it could be a manifestation of Asgore's corkboard, presenting a string of connections, theories, and plans regarding the shelter incident, of which we, the Fun Gang, and the plants could be audience for it. Or two, it could be the table that the bouquet flowers rest atop, who Mr. Dad Guy already talks to a lot for his plans and advice, such that could be like a play or otherwise presentation in itself. There is of course the possibility that it could be a Chapter 6 thing, but despite there likely being a bevy of hymns coming from that chapter in the future, but the shelter is such an unknown, so there's nothing of substance I could really say on this angle. Next one is actually a similar case to the previous. Synthesis, even just by the name, is probably going to be in Flower King, but can be applied to the same areas and scenarios I described for Amphitheater. Asgore's corkboard can be a synthesis of ideas as opposed to just being a play on photosynthesis, but can be applied to the Flower Man and his investigation some other way. However, above earlier, I do have proposition for Shelter Dark World usage for synthesis. Obviously, there's the root stuff, as this is where the forest would grow, but could also refer to synthetic, like science-adjacent creations meant to replace or mimic something. Something of Chris's, perhaps. And the last confirmed hymn we know of is Festival, which I find to be the most interesting of the three. It's all certainly supposed to take place during Hometown's festival, which would make it only the second hymn to appear in the light world that we can predict. With how much this event has been talked up, referenced in Chris's Noel's turbulent past, hosted by Carol, and is ostensibly related to the Weird Root, we can all agree that this track is going to be packed. I can't claim this definitively, of course, but I'd picture this would be taking the place of Hometown's theme in Chapter 5, if not being a more serious or character-focused song for a specific cutscene or two involving the hometown teens, revealing and developing more of Chris and Noel's relationship, and seeing them and Susie grow even closer and more grateful for each other. Although, let's not forget the other song that'd be creeping its way here too, if we've been making this holiday a little too grateful. And on that morbid note, what do y'all think? Does my theory make sense? Are my predictions for the future hymns sound? What would you propose for even more hymns in the future? Do discuss in the comments. If you want any other sleeper video topics like this more often, I'd certainly be welcoming suggestions, but if you really want to bribe, lobby for nearly any guaranteed video topic to be made manifest, you can become a member of my Patreon in the appropriate tiers, but any subscription here would be more than welcome. Beyond that, like and subscribe, because next time, I'll finally be covering a topic I've been too slow to get back to for too long: the Forgotten Man. I hope to see y'all again at that place. Whether 1 month or 1 year, the eggs will be waiting.